Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
So props to the Cardinals rookie offensive linemen. There are 4 of them. Mason Cole, Corey Cunningham, you know about those two. Also Zach Oldich and Colby Gossett. They are definitely in the holiday spirit as we welcome you here on this Wednesday afternoon. Cards Cover 2, but I don't know if you had a chance to see this walking around the facility here today, but the offensive lineman room is decorated. Christmas decorations all over the place. And, I mean, there's stockings with every lineman's name on it.
Did you see the one stocking that said IR?
I missed that one. That's good. I'm guessing that's for A.Q. Shipley
or
and Justin Pugh. Yeah, that's very good.
But, I mean,
there's
literally,
a Santa Claus in there. There's lights. The most impressive thing about it, though,
the wrapping.
And yes, and I got the intel from Cunningham about it. But they wrapped, like you wrap gifts. They wrapped the tables inside the meeting room, which and I didn't get a detailed look at the wrapping, but it certainly looked from afar as you walk by.
It's
the
color
room.
Coordinated.
It's very,
red,
very
green.
impressive.
Yeah,
Christmas
colors.
I'm this close to asking them to come to my house and decorate our house for the holidays because I'm running out of time, and it's not even December yet.
You know what they're going to tell you? Keep walking.
Yeah. It's very good, and if you need to take a look at it, check out Cunningham's Instagram page. His Instagram stories. He posted a couple of videos on the meeting room, but apparently it was at the request of Justin Pugh, who has kind of been the instigator all season long, making these rookies do different things, get different things. But I'll give Pugh credit; he did outfit the entire offensive line room this season with custom suits.
Very nice.
So when you're doing that, then you can kind of ask for a little bit more. So it was.
That sounds like a savvy veteran.
Yes, it was very.
Now,
very
hopefully,
good.
he gets healthy and he's ready to play next year.
There's always a but with you. There's always something like, oh well.
Well, I can get it right now. Well, they should be focusing on watching film. They are.
Yes.
Okay. They're in. We walk by the meeting rooms all the time when we come over here to the Dignity Health. What is
Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona Cardinals. Sorry, I see the signs everywhere. Yeah. And you see the sign.
I know we've got one right outside the door.
That is awesome.
Very well
in
done.
use right now.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, back off.
Yeah, stay away.
Anyways, I mean, this time of the year, a lot of it doesn't get reported, but the fact that these guys go out and they buy Christmas gifts for the less fortunate, and it's just, and then they go during the Thanksgiving time serving meals and. Phoenix Mission, a Society of St. Vincent de Paul. So, yeah, they're in the giving spirit. Now, they need to go to Green Bay and try to get in the giving spirit, or in this case, winning spirit.
Yeah, I like how you handle that. That's very good. Give them the gift of a mark in the locker.
Now, it is Aaron Rodgers' birthday on Sunday.
I did not know that.
No.
Well,
There's actually a couple Packers players, it's their birthday. It does happen. And Aaron Rodgers is known to say after the game he'll go home and have some scotch. Scotch.
We'll get more into Aaron Rodgers as we take off here on this Wednesday afternoon. Here's what's ahead on today's show. We play the numbers game. The aforementioned Aaron Rodgers, the mentor, and the mentee, Josh Rosen. You'll hear from both of them here on this Wednesday afternoon. Also, how Rodney Gunter recorded his first ever strip sack. That's the subject of Cardinals Film Room. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. We do that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on Cards Cover 2. That's ahead, but right now the news of the day, and it is good news because the Cardinals at practice today welcome back 3 players. Safety Budda Baker, tackle DJ Humphries, and wide receiver Chad Williams. Baker has missed the past 2 weeks with a knee injury. He sounded confident that he would be able to play on Sunday. Head coach Steve Wilks just glad to have his starting safety back on the field.
Oh, it's a plus. Again, he was part of that energy today. He practiced at a different level. His level of communication with the other guys out there is phenomenal, and he's a pretty good player.
Baker was all smiles standing at his locker talking to reporters. It was difficult for him, and as you would expect, to sit and watch. And he mentioned that he had family in town when the Raiders visited, so that made it even more difficult, the fact that he wasn't on the field in front of family and friends. But certainly would love to have him on the field because, as you've mentioned repeatedly, MJ, it's a trickle-down. When he's not on the field or in the game, someone's got to take his spot, and it's not just one spot, it's a handful of spots.
Yeah, and that's the reason why a couple of guys are no longer on the roster, Jamar Taylor and Bené Ben-Wickery, because it was lack of production. And this is a production business based on results. Yeah, they miss him. And to me, I can't say it enough, the Cardinals move up 9 spots to get him in the draft. And they're not looking back. I think he's one of your core players moving forward. We talk about Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden, and you throw in a guy like Budda Baker and Patrick Peterson. That's your core moving forward.
So we'll see what happens with Baker on Sunday. The other 2 players I mentioned, Humphries, too, has been bothered by a knee injury and missed the past 2 weeks. But according to Wilkes, it's sounding like he will be able to go. Wilkes was confident on Monday and once again confident today after practice. And then Chad Williams, according to Wilkes, looked pretty good. There's another guy that's been on the sidelines far too long this season as far as whether we see him on Sunday, kind of be left to be seen. But at least those guys are practicing, and in order to start playing, you got to be able to show that you're capable of getting on the practice field.
Yeah, Wilkes has been consistent with the injuries all year. Basically, they wouldn't have released Andre Smith if they didn't have a heads up that DJ was going to be out of practice this week. Now, it could be limited over the next day or so, and then all of a sudden, full go on Friday and then full go on game day. And that's going to open the door for Corey Cunningham, who's only given up a couple of pressures in back-to-back weeks, and going against Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, and he's going to get some pass rush this week. None of those names, but they do have a pretty good front where I just think Mike Pettin, former head coach of the Browns, he's going to bring the kitchen sink just because it's a rookie quarterback on the road. The weather could be about 35 to 38. Maybe you guys get some rain or sleet, or maybe in the second half it starts to snow. So the Cardinals cannot afford to get off to a slow start here.
Well, and Cunningham knows he's going to be tested. He knew that 2 weeks ago. He knew it last week.
Yep.
When you're that new guy, the rookie, if you will, yes, they're going to come after you. You're going to be targeted. It's no different than when we see a new corner come on the field and the quarterback is not blind to that. Where are they going to go on the next snap? Where are they going to target that side of the field?
Well, and you were standing there talking to him today during the scrum and afterwards. I mean, he's got great size. You see a lot of linemen take their shirt off and they look like an offensive lineman. Same with D-line. You got to pack some pounds on. You got to have an onion. And you see his long arms. He's got good feet. So those are 2 pluses he'll be able to. He's more athletic than people think, probably because they haven't watched him enough.
Well,
and former basketball player.
Absolutely. That's something that Wilkes touched on earlier today. A basketball player, football player, and baseball player all in high school and are recruited to Cincinnati as a tight end before he made the move to offensive line.
Can you imagine if he was like the catcher in baseball? Like just block the plate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a big body right
But this
there.
is really good, though, considering this draft class.
Absolutely.
I mean, besides Chris Campbell, and they went heavy offense. I got to assume they're going to go heavy offense next year, just because you got to get some playmakers and you got to get an offensive lineman in there or 2. But yeah, this is a great opportunity, and the fact that he's playing now, the whole idea, like DJ Humphries redshirted his entire first year. I mean, knee deep, and they're counting on DJ Humphries to stay healthy and be that fixture at left tackle, and then you got a guy that can play in the NFL. So I really think he brings some flexibility to the position, and hopefully he can, get better with the reps, because there's things that he hasn't seen yet. The first game I thought he was on the ground a little bit. I think that's just normal, just because your feet get tangled up and the defensive players, they're coming at you pretty hard. But for the most part, this is a great opportunity for him.
Absolutely. Game number 3 for Corey Cunningham coming up on Sunday. Elsewhere on the injury report, there were a handful of players that did not practice on Wednesday. Dayon Buchanan, Larry Fitzgerald, and Hassan Reddick. Of course, Buchanan dealing with a chest issue. Fitzgerald just a vet day off, not a big deal for him. He was out there tossing the football around during wide receiver drills. Hassan Reddick, though, showing up on the injury report, a little bit of a surprise to see him working on the side with a trainer. According to Wilkes, though, Reddick suffered a stinger on Sunday, and today was more of a precautionary move as far as making sure he was not in the midst of drills. But you look at that linebackers depth now. Bynes on the IR. Reddick, Buchanan on the sidelines. Gerald Hodges, you're the guy, and right now the only guy with real experience at linebacker this season.
Yeah, and it wasn't position of strength to begin with. Obviously they brought Jeremy Cash in. They brought some other linebackers in during the offseason and training camp, and unfortunately it just hasn't been a position of strength. And now you're talking about a couple of starters. I know Buck's been part-time, but Bynes has really been a good fixture in the middle, making the calls, making sure guys get lined up. So they're definitely going to miss him, especially in the run game, their rush defense. But, maybe we'll see, Gerald Hodges, he's really good against the run. You probably don't want to see him in coverage. And then if you want to get some of your playmakers on the field, we'll see about like a guy like Zeke Turner. Now, he has yet to really play on defense. He's more of a special teams player.
Absolutely. And Dennis Gardeck, another
another guy that's
teamer.
Been a demon on special teams.
Since our show on Monday, the Cardinals also made a series of roster moves. They added a tight end, a defensive end, and 2 cornerbacks. Tight end Darrell Daniels was claimed off waivers from the Seahawks. Defensive end Cameron Malveaux was signed off the Dolphins practice squad. And cornerbacks Dante Johnson and Quentin Rollins were both signed. I went back and looked. The past 13 days, the Cardinals have made 10 roster moves involving the cornerback position. That's either a signing, a re-signing, or a release. 10 roster moves.
And they flipped the practice squad during that time, too, with Chris Jones.
Yeah. And he was one of the odd men out on these most recent moves. It wouldn't be a surprise to see him maybe come back on the practice squad, as the Cardinals did welcome back wide receiver Jalen Tolliver to the practice squad. He was re-signed after being released on Saturday. So the shuffling continues here.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Kerwin Williams. He was released and brought back, and he had practice squad eligibility. It looks like Kendall Wright is taking that baton this year.
Yeah, it's and you never know what to do. I'm sure they're giving a heads up, hey, don't go too far away. We really like you, but it's a procedural move. We kind of need depth here on this Sunday, or an injury that pops up, and all of a sudden you're not on that flight to whatever city for that game on Sunday because, well, your roster spot is more valuable than you are at this point.
And according to NFL rules, you really got to make that move on Saturday. It's 4:00 Eastern, so 2:00 our time. That's when we got the McCrane was going to be active in that game when Dawson was dealing with that hip injury. So usually, you kind of have an idea as you get towards the end of the week, who's going to be out and who's going to be active. And then Saturday between Keim and Wilkes, they go through the inactive guys, but you got to have it in 2:00 local time, so you can always tell if there's a move that either caught them by off guard or they were thinking about it all week.
Wednesday is the kind of the signal that the prior week is behind us. So before we turn the focus completely over to the Green Bay Packers, one last look at the Cardinals-Chargers game, and then also a look ahead to what the Cardinals face on Sunday at Lambeau Field. Time to take you inside the numbers.
Inside the Numbers, presented by La Mesa RV, where you can experience life. Nothing, save a few bright spots, is pretty about the numbers for the Arizona Cardinals right now. Where to begin? The rush defense has struggled all season, and Sunday in Los Angeles was no different. The Chargers averaged nearly 6 yards per carry on their way to 178 yards on the ground. On the positive side, Robert Kimdichie had his best game as a pro, with 8 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, including 2.5 sacks, and 3 QB hits. As a team, the Cards sacked Phillip Rivers 4 times to improve their total on the season to 37, second in the league to Pittsburgh's 39. Chandler Jones's 11 sacks in 2018 are good enough for 3rd in the NFL, behind the Vikings' Danielle Hunter and the Rams' Aaron Donald. Offensively, the Cardinals moved the ball for 108 yards and 7 first downs in the first 2 possessions, resulting in a 10-0 lead. On the remaining 9 possessions, a mere 41 yards and 3 first downs. Larry Fitzgerald provided one of the few highlights, hauling in his 115th career touchdown reception, 7th all-time. Chargers tight end Antonio Gates sits in 6th place, 1 touchdown ahead of Fitzgerald with 116 TD catches. Andy Lee continues his Pro Bowl-worthy season, leading the NFL in punting at nearly 49 yards per kick. Next up for Big Red, the Green Bay Packers. In 5 career games against the Pack, including the postseason, Fitzgerald has 6 touchdown receptions. You have to go back to November of 2012 to find the last time these two teams met at historic Lambeau Field. Fitz scored on a 31-yard touchdown catch and run in a 31-17 loss.
How about some more numbers dealing with Larry Fitzgerald? He has now caught a pass in 41 different stadiums in his NFL career, adding the StubHub Center on Sunday as number 41. And he needs now just 4 catches to surpass Jerry Rice for the most catches in NFL history with one team. Of course, one of his catches on Sunday was the aforementioned touchdown catch, the 115th of his career, and that also just happens to be our call of the game.
Saca el balón Rosen, hace la finta de entregárselo a David Johnson, a lanzar completo a las 6, a las manos de Larry, que después de atrapar entra caminando en la zona. Touchdown, Arizona. La conexión, Josh Rosen, Larry Fitzgerald.
Gabriel Trio, the Arizona Cardinals Spanish radio broadcasts, always good when those two come together, Gabriel and Larry Fitzgerald. And by the way, speaking of number 11, the Big Red Rage coming up on Thursday from Marley's in Chandler, 6 to 7. Obviously, DJ Humphreys, the season-long host, Paul Calvisi, Ron Wolfley. But their special guest on Thursday is Larry Fitzgerald. And it is a special show, the 400th show of the Big Red Rage. So props to all those, including our producer, Jim Alejandro, who I believe has been part of all 400 shows. And
that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a heck of a streak you got there going on, Holmes. So,
and that's a great score to get Larry in person.
Absolutely. 6 to 7 Thursday night from Marley's in Chandler. If you can't get out there, you can listen live on 98.7 FM, Arizona's sports station, and also via the Cardinals Twitter account at AZ Cardinals. That is the Big Red Rage coming up on Thursday. As we broadcast here, Cards Cover 2, Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, doing so in our Bose QC35s. Go to Bose.com for more as we continue here on this edition of Cards Cover 2. And, of course, the storyline heading into this week, the Cardinals not where they want to be. The Packers not where they want to be. But the storyline that I don't know how much Green Bay is focusing on, but certainly all of us here in Arizona, is the 2 quarterbacks, Josh Rosen and Aaron Rodgers. One quarterback in his first season, another in his 14th, both from California. Rosen from Southern California, Rodgers from Northern California, both represented by the same agency, and they've developed a nice little relationship going back before the draft.
Yeah, and that's really important because, obviously, who Rodgers represented by CAA, they're one of the best in the business. They have a lot of quarterbacks, so I think it was more just a feeling out process and get him ready for his pro day. Obviously, get him ready prior to that at the combine. And just, some of the questions you're going to get and stuff like that. So he's been a wealth of knowledge, and he's been a sponge for Josh Rosen.
Well, it's one thing because they're represented by the same agency, to kind of, obviously makes sense for them to be put together. What is different about this is that this is a relationship that is ongoing. And we hear from both Aaron Rodgers and Josh Rosen here today, and they speak regularly. According to Aaron Rodgers, they spoke during Thanksgiving. They spoke earlier this week, and we had a chance, the Arizona media had a chance to hear from Aaron Rodgers, and then we all asked Josh Rosen about their relationship. First, though, via a conference call, here's Aaron Rodgers talking about the Cardinals rookie quarterback.
I liked him a lot from the start. I mean, he's a highly intelligent guy. He's got interests, outside of football, and he's really, curious guy. He's interested in a lot of different things and always learning and reading and studying up on stuff. So he definitely knows a lot about a lot. Definitely related to that. And then, he's a talented player as well. He's got a good moxie about him. He's got good leadership qualities, and he can throw the heck out of the ball too.
Defensive coordinators and head coaches against him are just always fearful. Like, they don't really know, that play can happen, anywhere, anytime. A shot does not need to be called. So I think that sort of sense of lethality at any time, and that sort of that fear is something that only a few guys really have in this league, and hopefully I start to gain that someday.
Quarterbacks in the NFL tend to gravitate towards one another, and I'm sure there's other relationships out there that maybe we're not familiar with that are more private than public, like this one is. But it is good for Josh Rosen to have someone. He's got guys here, and Byron Leftwich and Mike Lennon, that he can turn to, but it's also good sometimes to get an outside perspective. And he can go to Rodgers, whether in season, probably makes more sense in the offseason, get everyone's schedules. But it is good to have that guy that you can ask football and non-football.
Without a doubt, but there's stories, because Rodgers, he wasn't drafted the first pick in the draft. Mike McCarthy was actually the OC when they took Alex Smith, and he went through so many coordinators and head coaches. So Rodgers drops somewhere in the 20s. I want to say maybe 22.
Well, the famous scene of him in the green room, just sitting there by himself.
But he sat for 3 years under Brett Favre. And Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick will say until they're blue in the face, the only way you get better is getting reps. Now, we've gone back and forth on the plan was for Sam Bradford to make the starts. He was benched for lack of production, was an injury. And then Josh today said, well, maybe by week 6 or 7, I would have been antsy to get in there. So he's getting live reps. You know, again, the two things that I think he needs to improve on, and hopefully we see that in the next 5 games, is, you know, you got to cut down on the interceptions. You just can't give the ball away. And I know he's trying to make a throw just based on score, down and distance. And the other thing is accuracy. I mean, he's got a strong arm. We've watched him make those sideline throws. I mean, right on the money. Throws it over the DB's head. The receiver's right there, whether it's Ricky Seals-Jones or Christian Kirk. So those are things he has to work on. But it all starts with protection. We've talked about it at length. And hopefully they can settle in on these 5 guys right now for the remainder of the season.
And to your point about the sitting versus playing right away, Rodgers was asked about that, and his situation obviously quite different than Rosen's, because Rodgers sat for 3 years behind Brett Favre, and Favre was not going to go away, at least at the time Rodgers was drafted. But it was interesting to hear Rodgers say that he believes quarterbacks coming out of college now, as opposed to when he did back in 2005, are more ready to play right away because of what they're doing in college and the NFL looking at the college game, adapting some of those strategies, some of those play calls to the game. And you're seeing it with the 5 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round. All 5 are playing right now.
Yeah, I think some of those second-year guys, you can mention Jared Goff. You can mention Patrick Mahomes. You start looking at, I think Mayfield and Lamar Jackson have played pretty well when they've been in there. Now, curious to see what happens with Flacco, and they still have RG3 there. But, yeah, I mean, they're running the spread offense in high school now. They're running in college. Guys aren't even getting into a 3-point stance anymore, so they're much more equipped, and that's why everyone's trying to find the next Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Maybe the Bucs thought they had Dirk Cutter, a head coach that's a play caller, because they're more aggressive than maybe a defensive mind. That's just my theory. I don't know if there's any information to back it up, but it just seems like everyone's looking for that guy, and that's why you're going to hear some college names possibly for some of these head coaching jobs.
Yeah, trying to find the next guy, the next big thing, as you keep mentioning, and it's going to happen because Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan was going to be that guy as well, and he's still trying to figure that out.
I think John DeFilippo, now that he's running the show with under the head coach Mike Zimmer, he's kind of the head coach of defense. You control the offense. You've got a really good quarterback in Kirk Cousins. So Josh McDaniels, he's been in the same system with Tom Brady forever. I don't know if he's going to throw his hat in the ring, but I think his phone will be ringing.
Cardinals and Packers coming up on Sunday. As we mentioned, the relationship between Josh Rosen and Aaron Rodgers does stem not just to football stuff, but non-football stuff as well. In fact, we earlier today asked Rosen about some of the advice Rodgers has given him so far in his first NFL year.
Sometimes certain relationships you've had for a long time will change for the better and the worse with new friends that are coming into your life, old friends that have been in your life, old friends that have been, then not, but then will, so like family, all that stuff. So, Aaron would be the first one to tell you he's made a lot of mistakes, and I think it's nice to be able to hear from someone who who's glad to have learned from those mistakes and hopefully instill some knowledge so I don't trip over similar wires.
By the way, appreciate Aaron Rodgers agreeing to the conference call here with us on this Wednesday. It doesn't happen a lot these days as far as the opposing player. It used to be all the time, but now it's kind of a hit or miss depending on people's schedules. And then obviously late in the season, the Packers not doing well. But Aaron Rodgers was asked. He said yes. It tells you all you need to know about his thoughts on Josh Rosen because – look, it was a 10-minute conference call, and I think 8 of the 10 questions were dealing about Josh Rosen. The other one was about Larry Fitzgerald.
The Cardinals defense.
It's.
I asked Mike McCarthy.
Yes, but this one was special because and we're all interested and curious and learning more and more about what we think and hope is the quarterback of the future.
Yeah, and Josh will tell you the guy that he looks up to the most is Peyton Manning, the sheriff. So but. You could see some similarities between Rosen and Rodgers from a standpoint of when he's rolling out, the sidearm, the back shoulder fade, the tight throws. When he has time to throw it, he gets rid of the ball at 2 to 2.5. So, yeah, I think if you're going to tell your game about anyone, Peyton Manning was more of a statue. He was a pocket passer. He was so smart. He would pre-snap. He knew he was going for the ball very similar to Kurt Warner. Here, Josh is going to have to improvise a little bit more, and I think his intangibles will kick in.
And we'll see how they fare against one another coming up on Sunday. Kickoff from Lambeau Field is 11 a.m. That means pregame coverage begins at 6:30 on the Arizona Cardinals Radio Network. And if you need to know where to watch, listen, and follow the game, just go to azcardinals.com/GameCentral. And you can go there on game day as well. Live blog with play-by-play updates, scoring summary, and box score. And, of course, video highlights as well. That is azcardinals.com/GameCentral. In addition to the quarterback storyline on Sunday, here you have the Cardinals and Packers ranking 2-3 in the NFL in total sacks. The Cardinals with 37, the Packers with 36. Cardinals defense has recorded at least 4 sacks in the last 4 games. On Sunday against the Chargers, they sacked Phillip Rivers 4 times, including once by Rodney Gunter.
2 receivers right, 3 to the left, so an empty backfield for Rivers on 2nd and 9 at the LA 40, nearing 11 minutes to go in the half. They're down 3 to the Cardinals. Now takes the shotgun snap, 5-step drop, climbs the pocket, gets hit, the ball comes out, and it's recovered by the Cardinals. They're ruling that it was a fumble recovered by Benson Mayowa. Gunter forced it. The Cardinals will have the ball on the LA 35-yard line.
How about that? Al Holcomb dials it up a little bit. A 5-man rush. Josh Bynes looked like he was almost spying Phillip Rivers, but they brought 5 and got home once again. Wow, Big Red and that pass rush has come to ball today.
The Cardinals' first takeaway since Week 7 as we take you inside the Cardinals Film Room to explain how it happened. Actually, we'll let Kyle Odegard of azcardinals.com, otherwise referred to as the director, do that here on Cards Covered 2. Here's the situation, Kyle. Chargers ball 2nd and 9 from their own 40, 11-17 remaining in the second quarter. Why don't you pick it up right there?
Yeah, and I think it's like you said, 2nd down, and there's nobody in the backfield besides Phillip Rivers. So I was talking to Mayowa and Rodney Gunter, and obviously they said right away, okay, this is going to be a pass, which changes your mentality as a defensive lineman. You know that you can just go after the quarterback. You don't have to worry about a run, and that's why play action is so effective, because defensive linemen have to hesitate when there's the threat of the run. So they both knew they could go after him right away. The key to this one early on was the coverage by the defensive backs. And it's funny because we all know what happened throughout the rest of the game. Phillip Rivers completing 25 straight passes to start, and he had such a phenomenal game. But really early on, the defensive line did a really nice job. The defensive backs did a pretty good job. And on this play in particular, the fact that they were able to cover right away, because in 5 receiver sets, you usually see the ball come out pretty quick because the quarterback knows that pressure is coming after him, and he doesn't have anybody to help chip as a running back. But the linemen did a pretty good job. Benson Mayowa came around the first time. He came around the edge, and he almost got there himself. Pretty good rush. Phillip Rivers, being the veteran that he is, he was able to step up. Benson Mayowa was saying he didn't even really settle back there, probably because he saw Mayowa coming. So Phillip Rivers moved up, and that's when Rodney Gunter kind of took over. He did a little swim move against the guard and did a nice job because he swiped first with his right hand, going for the ball, missed it, but had the presence of mind to swipe again with his left. And that time he was able to knock the ball out. And then Benson Mayowa, I asked him, sometimes you miss on this edge rush. He went to the ground. Sometimes the guys will just give up on the play. He did a really good job of staying with it. And he said he saw immediately that ball pop up, and there was a big mass of people there, but he jumped on it quickly. But it wasn't even really a tussle because he saw it so fast. Obviously, the linemen are blocking on offense, so it helped him where he was able to see it, got on it, and it was a nice play for the Cardinals pass rush. You mentioned those sack numbers recently, and that's something that's been consistent all year. And you think of what you need to do defensively in the NFL these days is get after the passer. So while not a bunch of things are going great for the Cardinals right now, at least they have that.
Well, and the one thing that Gunter told you on azcardinals.com/film room is something that we've heard from a few defensive players, and that is the reach. And sometimes it's not always about sacking the quarterback or getting to the body, but reaching for the quarterback's arm to knock the ball loose. This one wasn't picked up and returned for a touchdown, but they did recover the ball, and it's something that Gunter's quote was, "We've been reaching since OTAs, so when that moment came in the game, my mind said reach, and I got my first strip sack."
Yeah, and I'd really never had this conversation with guys before this season. I'm sure it was taught under Bruce Arians, and when Todd Bowles and James Betcher were here as the coordinators, you want to force turnovers, but it certainly seems like a big emphasis within this coaching staff. Some of that may be because of the hits on the quarterbacks that are always being flagged, so they don't want to sack them if they can just get the ball out. But either way, you'd obviously take a fumble over a sack. And I remember earlier in the year when Budda Baker went for it and missed, so there is a downside to going for the ball. But in this situation, Rodney Gunter wasn't going to get the sack, so it was a really heads-up play by him, take a swipe at that ball and hit it out. And then, like I said, heads-up play by Benson to jump on it.
The play involving those two specifically, Gunter and Mayowa, two guys that are not Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, and when you look at Gunter, it's not Robert Nkemdiche, the players that, or Corey Peters, the big names. But those two, I think, are really some of the unsung heroes on this defense. Not only their numbers overall, in fact, Gunter's having the best year of his 4-year career. He's a free agent. Mayowa's having a good season as well. He's an impending free agent. But both of those guys, they don't get a lot of attention, but when we have the chance, they deserve the recognition because you need depth, and sometimes they've provided that depth. And in the case of both of them, they've started as well because of one, Nkemdiche's ineffectiveness, and then Golden not quite healthy at the start of the season when we saw Mayowa start 3 or 4 times at the beginning of the season. So those guys, it's contract year, but they're producing when they're getting on the field.
And I think, like you said, you're always going to have a rotation on the defensive line, and you need guys to play. You've seen in the past where sometimes there's just guys in there because your stars need a breather, but these guys are definitely producing. Rodney Gunter especially, I think the way he does a pretty good job against the run, and he's really made some more plays in the pass rush this season than we've seen before. He's a guy that, even though it's his 4th year, he came in very raw to the NFL, so I'm sure he kind of kept on growing as the years went by. Definitely think he's having a good year at a great time being a pending free agent. So, and it's funny, when I talked to him at the very end, or talked to him on Monday about the play, I was asking him about the football. I said, "Oh, that was cool. I saw Benson gave you the football after the play." He goes, "Yeah, that was nice." And then he kind of thought about it. He goes, "I don't know where that football went." So I'm like, "Oh, you lost the football?" He said, "I was so emotional during the play that I lost the ball," but apparently the equipment guys picked it up.
We've got a football issue again for the second time this season. The first time was Josh Rosen and Chad Williams figuring out who was going to get the ball. But again, and
he has it right there on the screen, but apparently he lost it at some point and
gave it to somebody.
Heads up move by the equipment managers to track it down.
Flag it. Get some equipment tape, put his name on there.
And you mentioned his emotion. I mean, he did not practice at all last week. His father passed away, and he arrived. I think he joined the team on Saturday night, and without practicing, it's impressive.
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks against the Raiders, he was super emotional, and last week, and there, I mean, when you have a tragedy like that, it stirs something inside you, and I'm
That's
sure
right. It was the Raiders game that.
Yeah, the Raiders game
that's
first,
right.
and then this one. But I think you can just tell that it's something where he's thinking of that, and it's something that's pushing him in this scenario, and it's working out good for him where he's channeling that into positive energy.
And you guys talked about Rodney Gunter being a free agent, and he would like to be here. I'm sure the organization would like to figure something out, whether it happens now or in the offseason. Corey Peters is under contract next year. He got a 3-year extension, I want to say, a year ago. And then the only guy that really hasn't made the transition from the 3-4 to the 4-3 is Olsen Pierre. I mean, he played really well last year. The Cardinals basically kept him on their 53-man roster. He was inactive every single game. I think the Falcons called in the preseason, and they weren't trading him. Maybe they were trying to look for the replacement for Calais Campbell along with Kim Dichie. So, but Rodney Gunter, he's country strong. I mean, you look at that 2015 draft class now.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at DJ Humphries, starting left tackle. You throw in Marcus Golden, when healthy, double-digit sack guy. David Johnson, and now Rodney Gunter.
And J.J. Nelson, too. It was a great draft class. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you look at Gunter's numbers: 31 tackles, 2.5 sacks, pass defense, 2 forced fumbles, 5 quarterback pressures, 10 quarterback hits, has not missed a game in his 4-year career. Mayowa, his numbers: 28 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 passes defense, 1 fumble recovery, 8 quarterback pressures, 10 quarterback hits. This is his 6th season, first with the Cardinals. And yeah, I mean, we're sitting here almost December, and you have to start to have these conversations as far as guys who are either under contract or even impending free agents. Who do we want around in 2019?
Yeah, I definitely think Gunter, I spoke to him about it, and he said, yeah, I would love to be here. So, the way he's playing, and he's just so strong, and now you're starting to see him show up. I mean, there'll be a couple games when maybe he doesn't fill up the stat sheet like the numbers you mentioned.
Well, and it's hard because when you're interior lineman, it's hard to get those numbers.
And Bynes has been a tackling machine in Boston, and throwing Bethea and Budabaker just based on how the defense is playing. I think that he's peaking at the right time. Usually it takes a couple years. I mean, didn't they go down like a dirt road next to a graveyard to work him out? Terry
I was going to say, it's really cool on a personal level for a guy who I think may have had one scholarship offer going into college and went to a really small school, and he wasn't this hotshot recruit coming out of high school or even college. He didn't go to the combine. So to see him stay in the league for 4 years and have a really good season going into free agency, you feel really good for a guy like that who didn't know he was going to become this NFL player from early on. Maybe he thought it deep down, but when people aren't throwing this adulation at you, it's a little bit different scenario, and it's the type of guy you root for in the NFL.
And I don't think he asked for water during that workout. And they were impressed with that.
Yeah.
I mean, because you got to stay hydrated. I mean, he's working out, and I'm sure it was hot and humid.
He's used to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you have a nugget. You were at the draft.
Yeah.
And we knew the Cardinals were trying to get one of the 4 quarterbacks, and Steve Keim only gave up a 3 and a 5 to move up to get Rosen. You got a chance to talk to Josh that night.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about Josh Rosen and the Aaron Rodgers relationship, and it's, I mean, you always kind of wonder, is this stuff manufactured, and how friendly are they? But what Josh Rosen told me on draft night, because I was out there in Dallas, was that Aaron Rodgers was texting him as he was dropping a little bit. And like you mentioned, Aaron Rodgers famously fell in the draft, had to wait for the Packers to take him late in the first round. He basically just told Josh, hang in there. Things can obviously turn out well. It's not all about what happens on draft night. So that relationship is real. They may have downplayed it a little bit, but they're good friends. I think they talk a lot, and they're very, very similar personalities. I think that get along well because they like playing football and they're good at that. But
that doesn't define them.
Yeah, they like talking about other stuff. Yep. They're both very intelligent guys, and it's something where I think that relationship is going to be strong for a long time.
Yeah, Rodgers called Rosen an old soul. And we always keep hearing Leftwich call him a kid, and here now we get the old soul reference, but it's because it's not just...
That means he's mature beyond his years.
Yeah, you're not just worried about football. Now, look, I say they're not worried. I mean, yeah, you get your work done, but they have other interests, and that's okay. I mean, you can have other interests, and
it's probably good for you to not be obsessed with football 24/7.
Sometimes it's good to take a little bit of a mental break as well as a physical break as well. As we exit the film room here on Cards Cover 2, for more of Kyle's work, just go to azcardinals.com/film room. Does a great job, and we certainly enjoyed every single Wednesday breaking down one single play. And as we discussed, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago, sometimes it's a play that doesn't work, the onside kick, but just the idea and what goes into all of that, and then just the thinking that these players have to do within a matter of seconds or split seconds, whether it's the quarterback or even these defensive linemen as well, recognizing no running back, so it's we know we're just going to pin our ears back and go forward, yet it's all easy from the vantage point of the media and the fans, not so much when you're on the field.
Oh, and you see Mayo to win off the edge, and then like Kyle said, usually if you go down and Rivers is getting ready to get rid of the ball, you just not let up, but the play's developing in real time. And the fact that he was able to get there and Rivers stepped up in the pocket and Gunter gets the sack and the strip, and here's Mayo right there to jump on the ball. Unfortunately, Cardinals couldn't capitalize on that field goal.
I conveniently left that out part.
If Mayoa doesn't get the initial pressure, Rivers doesn't have to step up, Gunter doesn't get the forced fumble, so a lot of things always go into it. I think Rivers was a little bit uncomfortable on that play from the beginning because of what Mayoa did.
You good to stick around, hear what the Bird Gang has to do?
Of
Before
course.
we get to the Bird Gang sound-off, promote yourself. Hype yourself up. What do you got working on this week on azcardinals.com?
Yeah, well, I mean...
And if you don't have anything, make something up.
Right. Well, next week I'm going to have a story on, like you talking about Josh Rosen, kind of his worldview, a little more not just football, talk to him a little bit about that. So that'll be a good one. This week, all the talk about the number 2 cornerback again. Patrick Peterson is on one side. You're kind of back to the drawing board now that Bené Benwickery and Jamar Taylor aren't on the team. Cycled in some new guys, so going to try to track a couple of them down, talk to David Amerson. He's getting a shot. Some of these guys were high picks and have produced some in the NFL, kind of a last-ditch effort for them to prove that they can be starters or even depth options in the NFL again. So looking at that number 2 cornerback spot for tomorrow.
I mentioned it earlier in the show, 10 roster moves in the past 13 days dealing with the cornerback position. Of course, Amerson was part of 2 or 3 of those moves because he's been signed, released, signed again. And that's just the nature of the NFL, but perhaps he'll get an opportunity coming up on Sunday when the Cardinals take on the Green Bay Packers. All right, time for the Bird Gang to sound off here on Cards Cover 2. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2. We'll see what the Bird Gang is sounding off on this Wednesday. We'll begin with Instagram, and we'll start on the offensive side. First up, thoughts on Byron Leftwich since his promotion. He's gone 4 games as the Cardinals play caller.
I'm happy with what he's done. I think you can see that the Cardinals are deficient in talent in certain areas, and the offensive line has been banged up or not productive. So that's always going to be hard for a play caller when either your quarterback isn't protected totally or the run holes aren't there. I think he's doing a good job with what he has. I think the Cardinals need to upgrade on that side of the ball for next season, but I've been happy with what he's done. I think he's brought more motion into the offense. He's done some more creative things, and overall, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and I think David Johnson's numbers have definitely gone up compared to when Mike McCoy was here for the first 7 games, almost doubled that. Larry Fitzgerald's I know he only had 2 targets, but he's got touchdowns in the previous games, and he's one of your go-to guys. And Christian Kirk, Josh has a really good relationship with him, and they're on the same page. And so you like to see some other guys. Maybe Chad Williams gets an opportunity this week. Ricky Seals-Jones still needs to become a better pass-catching tight end. His hands got to get stronger. I thought we saw a little bit of that maybe in the second half of the season. So, yeah, Leftwich, you can't just change the roster during the season. So he's working with what they have, and he's trying to make the best of it.
Staying with the offense, Instagram user wants to know how Corey Cunningham did at tackle, and I think all you have to do is just figure out that he's going to be your right tackle this week. I mean, 2 starts at left tackle. The Cardinals, as MJ, you mentioned earlier in the show, they don't release Andre Smith if they didn't think Cunningham would be up for the job.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's played really, really well these first 2 games. he's still a 7th-round pick, so he needs to show it over the last 5, but I think he certainly deserves the opportunity, especially knowing that Andre Smith probably wasn't going to be your right tackle next year. It makes sense to start looking at some younger guys that have proven they deserve the opportunity. I don't think you want to just throw in any rookie or second-year guy just to look at him, because if he's not ready, especially on the line, then you start getting Josh Rosen in some hot water. But Corey Cunningham definitely played well, and Raiders game is like, okay, but then you go against Los Angeles and you're seeing Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, and when you hold up decently well against those two guys, that tells you something about him. And now Corey Cunningham just has to continue to progress and really play well so he can try to get himself into that conversation as a starter next year.
Yeah, I don't think it's too big for him. You can tell he's matured since he's been here, and usually you see guys make that jump from 1 year to the second year, just knowing what it's like to be a pro. You start like following these guys and what they do daily and their routines, but it doesn't appear to be too big for him, and he's not overwhelmed when he's out there. He's just letting his athleticism take over. Good feet and long arms.
Cards cover 2, continuing with the Bird Gang sound off here. Let's move to Twitter, and this user wants to know, it's kind of more of a big picture question. Why do you think the wheels fell off this year? Personnel, coaching, or both? And then the follow-up, how does it get fixed?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to point to a combination. Clearly, the Cardinals don't have enough talent in a lot of these games. When you lose by 30 points, it's not 1 or 2 coaching decisions or 1 or 2 bad bounces on the field. It's a lack of talent, and I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that they had this really good run with Carson Palmer and Bruce Arians, and the Cardinals made moves with the salary cap where they kind of pushed in all their chips in 2015, 2016, and you had to take some dead money because you were going for it, and you pushed some of those contracts back. So this is almost a recalibration year. Now you look forward, the salary cap picture is going to be a lot better. So I think, yeah, certainly talent. And then obviously when you switch coaches, the beginning of the season is always going to be a little rocky as they bring in their schemes and their ideas. So personally, I think it's a little bit of both, but the personnel definitely needs an upgrade.
Well said.
Last question via Twitter. With the struggles the Packers have had this season, do you think this could be a good chance for the Cardinals to get an upset win?
Well, they're unbeaten at home.
Yeah,
weather may or may not be a factor.
It will be a factor.
35-38. Maybe in the first quarter you see a little bit of rain or sleet, and then maybe by the fourth quarter or second half, maybe you see a little snow flurries. Yeah, I mean, and Aaron Rodgers has thrown 1 interception the entire season. So they got their work cut out. If they can force some turnovers, maybe get a defensive touchdown, then you tilt the field position because of Andy Lee, and hopefully they can keep it close to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to play basically a perfect ball game up there, but if you can get some bad weather, that's probably a good thing for the Cardinals. Anything to bring Aaron Rodgers down a peg would be great for the Cardinals.
True.
But seeing what Phillip Rivers did, that's why the pressure that was there early, that's got to stay all game. Yep. And then the defensive backs just have to do a better job in coverage. You can't allow a guy to complete all those passes against you.
Well, Rodgers has been sacked 34 times this season, tied for the 4th most in the NFL with Russell Wilson. So if there's a way to get to him like the Cardinals did with Phillip Rivers, the difference was all those 4 sacks were in the first half. So something you talked about, Kyle. You got to have it consistent so a quarterback doesn't get into a certain rhythm and then all of a sudden feels comfortable standing back there and eyeing the defense.
So we might be getting Rodney Gunter film play number 2 next week.
That'd be nice.
Or the roles can be switched. Mayowa can get the strip sack and Gunter get the fumble recovery.
Yes, I'll tee him up.
I'll
let him know.
We all got it set for next Wednesday here on Cards Cover 2. Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off on this Wednesday's edition of Cards Cover 2. Again, using the hashtag Cards Cover 2. We'll do it again on Friday as we get you set for Week 13, Cardinals at the Packers. 11 a.m. again is the kickoff at Lambeau Field. And that's going to wrap up this edition here on this Wednesday afternoon from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grayson Troy, Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Javier Rodriguez, Brandon Nadius, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sides. For Kyle Odegard, Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday. We'll talk to you again Friday afternoon here on Cards Cover 2.